we got to learn to do our own research. We have to learn to think for ourselves and not just take headlines and hear what people say, regardless of status. One of the things I like about the Bitcoin space is Bitcoin doesn't care about your PhD. Bitcoin doesn't care about your double master's degree. Bitcoin doesn't care about any of those things. TikTok, another block. What's up, people? Welcome to this episode of the Buy the Hood podcast or webcast, because I don't know how you're consuming this content. I'm your host as always. My name is Jimmy. And listen, want to start off every show making sure we give gratitude first and foremost. So thank you to anyone that supports anything we got going on. All of our members from MDC Strategy, all of our students from Buy the Hood University and the Buy the Hood Ownership Camp. Want to come and do this quick show. I'm dolo today. Cora isn't with me. He's, out working, doing the work that we talk about. But I got a lot of messages, and I want to make sure that we did drop a quick pod this week about some comments that were made recently by Jamie Dimon in front of Congress. So what's interesting is we've been talking, we always talk about Bitcoin. We're Bitcoin, not crypto people, just strictly Bitcoin. In fact, our Friday show, and if you're not familiar, every Friday at 7 p.m., we do a live show and we give away Bitcoin and have been doing so for a couple of years. So we are Bitcoiners, and we do give away Bitcoin every Friday. But our most recent show was entitled Get Off Zero, just encouraging people, if they have not participated, to start to participate. And again, it's not financial advice. Anything we say here is not financial advice. We just talk about the things that it is we do in our daily lives, and being a Bitcoiner is part of that. In fact, as you see, I'm sitting here now. For those watching the video, with my t-shirt on that says I told you so. So, we do a lot of talking about Bitcoin, and because of that, in our community, a lot of folks ask my opinion on what Jamie Dimon said. And for those who aren't familiar with Jamie Dimon, he is the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, which is the largest bank in our country. And he said some not too flattering things about Bitcoin. I'll play the video, and if you're listening to the audio, you should be able to hear this as well, so you can hear exactly what he said, and then I'll respond to that. But let's start with that. And he's talking to Elizabeth Warren, who also, by the way, is not a fan of Bitcoin. So you can see her smiling if you're watching the video, which is interesting because she's talking to a banker, and she's, generally tough on bankers. Although, if you look at a lot of funding for herself as well as members of Congress, it's kind of interesting to see. A lot of us believe that bankers run the country, but that's either here nor there. Let me hit play on this video so you guys can hear exactly what it is he said. I want to make sure that you don't miss anything. Hold on one second. Let me share this. But it's very interesting because you talk about hypocrisy. But anyway, let's get to it though. I want to make sure you can hear the audio. And again, this is Jamie Dimon speaking to Elizabeth Warren about Bitcoin.
I've always been deeply opposed to crypto, Bitcoin, etc. You pointed out the only true use case for it is criminals, drug traffickers, anti-money laundering, tax avoidance. And that is a use case because it is somewhat anonymous, not fully, and because you can move money instantaneously, and because it doesn't go through, as you mentioned, all these systems have built up over many years, know your customers, sanctions, OFAC. They can get bypass all of that. If I was the government, I'd close it down.
Okay.
I've always been deeply opposed to crypto.
You heard, I'm not going to play it again. You heard what he said, right? And man, let's take this piece by piece. So first and foremost, our show is dedicated to Black wealth and personal finance. The one thing that I want people to do is to learn how to do their own research and to learn how to read, but also learn to just think about things, right? If I'm in a system that has enabled me to become a billionaire and run have trillions of dollars under management, and something comes up which can be a threat to that system, how do you think I would feel? Right? That's the first thing. Just think about that. I want you guys to think about that. The second thing is this. The one thing I love about technology, and I often say this, I just did a continuing education class yesterday in Telford, PA, for a bunch of professionals with a license. It was a continuing education for their valuation license. And one of the things I was talking about was real estate modeling. And there are a lot of people who are appraisers, who are traditional appraisers who go out, pull their comps and write appraisals up. And I was telling them that technology can kind of replace what it is that they're doing. And one of the points that I was making is regardless of your field, technology can care less about your feelings. I don't care if you're in healthcare, if you're in education, if you're in appraisal, if you're doing anything, technology does not care about your feelings. It will continue to move forward and do what it has to do. That's what's interesting about this. This is a threat to a system that has enabled him to create generational wealth for him and his family. Um, and technology just doesn't care about that. It doesn't care about that you're speaking of an old system. So I think that's interesting. Now, breaking down some of the things he said that he wants it gone. He said that the government should ban it. The funniest part is you thinking that that's possible, right? That means that you haven't studied enough, right? The government can't ban it. You can possibly ban the off ramps, right? Which can make it more difficult to cash out to go back into cash, but you can't ban cryptocurrency. You just can't. I mean, you can't point Bitcoin specifically. I mean, not say cryptocurrency. Um, that is the power of decentralized, right? Hash rate is increased. It's a distributive ledger, but you can't do anything about that. So, and also, I want to break down some of the other things he said. So, let me share my screen. Something else I want to show, which is something that was shared to me on Twitter X, whatever you want to call it. Senator Cynthia Lummis was put up a post. It was talking about crypto assets account for less than 1% of global illicit finance. So global illicit finance is estimated to be $2.9 trillion, a $2.9 trillion economy. And only 20 billion of that, which is less than 1%, 0.69% run through crypto, right? Let's talk about real data and not just people's feelings. So he's up there talking about it's only used for one thing. So again, let's just think about this. Money laundering, um, money used in criminality. That's not new. you could watch enough documentaries and movies or just think for yourself and understand that this has been going on since the beginning of time. Since we were able to trade resources, um, for goods and services, there's always been a black market. It didn't black market didn't start with Bitcoin. The black market always exists. There is more money, right, on the black market and through money laundering that goes through JP Morgan than Bitcoin, right? And this is the guy who's the CEO of JP Morgan. There's more money in fiat currency that is used for negative activities than anything else. So you just gotta be smart about that. It absolutely makes no sense to say something that's all it's used for when the fact is, see, here's what's interesting about Bitcoin in general. You hear the same kind of complaints all the time about the energy usage or this. Like it's been proven over and over again that none of that stuff actually makes any sense. But you have global elites that will get in front of you and talk to you like you're stupid. But again, the reason I'm doing this quick episode is because I just want you guys to think and do your own research. Don't even take what I'm saying as being truthful, because again, one of the things you learn when you go down that Bitcoin rabbit hole is that you don't have to trust anybody, right? You can verify. Don't trust, but verify, right? So let me share something else with you. If for those that are listening in, that last piece wasn't a video. It was just a description of how much money flows through illicit finance. And it says 2.9 trillion total, but 0.69% of that goes through crypto. So majority of it, she was saying majority, damn near all of it goes through fiat currencies. But with that being said, you can have something illicit done or money laundering done through gold. Are you going to ban gold? No, you're not, right? But gold is also not a threat to the current power structure the way that Bitcoin can be. And that is what the real issue is with these folks. So let me share this with you guys for a second. Something else I found. All right, so let me share this with you as well. This is from Brian Brooks, right? And Brian Brooks is he was the former comptroller of the currency. So he was the chief executive of the federal regulatory agency that oversees the national banking system, right? That was his former role. But he had a comment that someone sent me as well on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. And as you can see, a lot of information I get from Twitter or X. That's where the previous video. I'm on here a lot during the course of the day. And there's a thriving Bitcoin community. So people are always sending information back and forth. But I found this video to kind of talk about it kind of goes to why you would see someone like a Jamie Dimon say, what it is that he said, right? So let me play this video. Now, for those listening to the audio, you should be able to hear this as well. All right, here we go.
Cryptocurrency does not seek to replace currency. It's a bad name. Cryptocurrency seeks to replace banking. The core things that banks have done since the 1300s, those are going to go away, 100%. And let's just be clear what I mean by that. The reason that we even have banks originated in Italy around the year like 1340, all right? And the reason they originated was because of a set of accounting advances that allowed banks to serve as trusted intermediaries between parties that owed each other money. Before that, literally, I would write you a note and I would promise to pay you money and you'd put the note in your pocket and you'd see if anybody else would take the note. You know, that's why we refer to discounting notes. And then banks arose and it was like, you no longer need to do that. We'll take care of it for you, but you're going to have to pay us to do that. That function of needing a trusted intermediary to maintain ledgers of account to figure out, do I owe Brooks money or does Brooks owe me money? It turns out that function no longer has to be done by human beings. The same way we don't need postal clerks anymore. I can send you an email for free and it's instant and that's just the end of the post office. Sorry, but it just is. That function will go away. What's going to be left for banks is the high value add services, structured finance, investment advisory, all of the things that make a dynamic economy function. We still need people to do that. There's a lot of creativity going on in finance. But the core of banking, the base of the pyramid, the thing that drives most of their revenue, doesn't need to exist. And that's why I say, and I was saying to one of the organizers, even before we stood up on this panel, cryptocurrency does not seek to replace currency. It's a bad name. Cryptocurrency seeks to replace banking.
All right, so, I mean, he kind of said it all right there, right? So think about this. If you have something that is seeking to replace what it is that makes a majority of your revenue, how do you expect that person to respond? So I say all that to say this. When people tell me about what Jamie Dimon says about Bitcoin, it doesn't shake my faith in the asset at all. The same way it didn't when Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger spoke bad about Bitcoin. Rest in peace to Charlie Munger. Because the fact of the matter is, technology does not care about your feelings. I just find it interesting, some of the things that he says in terms of the reasoning why it should be gone. It's very comical to me, especially when you start talking about, criminality. Like, let's not talk about the J.P. Morgan Coke boat, but let's forget the J.P. Morgan Coke boat. Let's talk about this, right? Here's an article for you. J.P. Morgan Chase. This is September of 2023. They just settled a lawsuit. J.P. Morgan Chase settles Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking suit by U.S. Virgin Islands for $75 million. For those watching the video, I'm sharing the article so you can see it. For those that are listening in, I'll just read a little bit of this article for you. J.P. Morgan Chase said it will pay $75 million to settle a lawsuit by the U.S. Virgin Islands alleging that the American bank facilitated and benefited from the sex trafficking of young women by his long-term customer, Jeffrey Epstein, right? So who are you to talk about criminal? Never mind. J.P. Morgan also said it reached a settlement with Jeff Staley, a former executive at the bank who had been friends with Epstein, to resolve any claims that J.P. Morgan was responsible for civil damages as part of this whole Epstein Island thing. So it's just comical to me to hear you talk about criminality when, man. How about this right here? Right, one more thing I'm going to share with you guys. Here's a website called Violation Tracker, right? And what they do is they track the violations of big companies, as well as small companies, to see who's being fined for what. So since 2000, JP Morgan has paid close to $40 billion in fines for all sorts of financial offenses, consumer protection related offenses, government contracting offenses, employment, toxic securities abuses, there's a number, mortgage abuses, banking violations. And you can go through this if you'd like to and get a little bit more information on all of these different lawsuits. But it's just further proof, like, who are you to call anybody? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying that everyone in the space of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, is an honorable actor. That's ridiculous, right? I never say all of anything. But the fact of the matter is, to paint with such a broad brush is kind of like very insane to me, considering, you're a banker, yo. You're a banker. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I mean, y'all could take whatever that. Shout out to all the bankers doing honorable work out there, but most of y'all ain't honorable, man. Let's keep it honest, man. Let's keep it honest. So, what I want you guys to take from this is to understand who's talking. It's almost like when you look at data sets in data science, right? And you see all these studies done, and they give you the data on it. What I learned to do is who's funding this study, right? Because sometimes when you see who funds a study, you'll understand why they come to the conclusion they come to, regardless of what the hypothesis is. I already know what conclusion you're going to come to if you tell me who paid for the study before I even read it. So it's like we got to learn to do our own research. We have to learn to think for ourselves and not just take headlines and hear what people say, regardless of status. One of the things I like about the Bitcoin space is Bitcoin doesn't care about your PhD. Bitcoin doesn't care about your double master's degree. Bitcoin doesn't care about any of those things. TikTok, another block. It is what it is. So a lot of times we put so much into someone's position, not understanding how they got there or why they're there. And also just understand that even though I'm saying all this, I'm not speaking about him as a person. I don't know him as a person. But logically speaking, why would someone who has done what he was able to accomplish look at something that's a threat and just embrace it, right? He's going to fight as long as possible. But eventually, we've all seen what happened to Larry Fink and BlackRock and how they've made a 180. It's because there's nothing you can do about it. You know what I mean? It's going to keep moving. Now, I understand, right? I understand that some of those bigger banks are trying to create ETFs and get into the space as a way to just charge people fees. I totally get that. But when we're talking about people, right, putting trust in a system and operating outside of a quote unquote system where, we're going peer to peer, there's nothing wrong with that. To me, it's the most powerful asset that's ever existed, right? And this is coming from a guy who's made a living in the real estate space, land and Bitcoin. That's all I need. With that being said, though, give me your feedback. Let me know what you think about what he said. Give me your feedback on anything that I may have said during the course of this episode. If you disagree or agree with me, that's fine, because again, I'm moving around like Bitcoin these days. I don't care what nobody says about anything. I know what it is I like to do. I know what it's like to own. I do that and mind my business. Shout out to my brother Corey. He should be back on the next episode, man. Like I said, we all out there doing the work. But I wanted to make sure I dropped this episode to talk a little bit about what Jamie Dimon said and to give my perspective and feedback on it. I ain't paying due no mind, man. I mean, I'm going to keep doing what I said. I told you so, man. Like, stack sats or die trying. That's what I live by. But listen, man, I appreciate y'all. Friday, we do our Bitcoin giveaway. You know what I'm saying? Right now, I think you can get about 2,500 sats for $1. So, we give away a number of sats every, let me see. So based upon that, we give, like close to 65,000, about 62,000 sats every Friday we give away. I'm going to start speaking in Satoshi terms and not speaking in dollar terms no more, man. That's where I'm moving to. We give about 62,500 sats every Friday. So make sure you pull up to our live stream. We appreciate the support from all you guys. Make sure you share, like, subscribe, do all the YouTubing and stuff. Give us some feedback. Share this with a family or friend. And if you have any questions, make sure to reach out to us at any time. Our email is buythehoodllc@gmail.com. We're at buythehood on all socials. But as we always say, it's not about how much money you make. It's about how much you keep. Game elevates, and we'll see you guys on our next episode. Peace.